Welcome to another edition of Hometown Happenings. I'm Supervisor George Hoehm. Thanks for joining us. Well, we have a great show, but before we get to that, on a personal note, I'd like to thank the residents of the town of Clarkstown for their confidence in re-electing me as your town supervisor for the fourth time. In November, we won the election, and I'm looking forward to continuing as your town supervisor for another 2 years on January 1st, 2022. It's hard to believe that we're about to complete 6 years as town supervisor. My administration has been engaged in a lot of activities within the town, major construction projects. We've done over $40 million worth of infrastructure projects. We received over $20 million in state and federal grants. We've consolidated departments. We've been able to do an awful lot of work through COVID. It's really been a lot of activity, and I wouldn't change it for the world these last 6 years. And I'm really overwhelmed by the confidence that the people of Clarkstown have expressed in me in re-electing me this past November, again, to my fourth term. I want to congratulate my friends and colleagues on the town board, Councilman Frank Borelli, Councilman Mike Graziano, Councilman Don Franchino, and Councilman Pat Carroll, all who were successfully re-elected as well. And I want to congratulate our Highway Superintendent Bob Malone, who does a wonderful job, who's also returning to office, as well as our town clerk, Justin Sweet. I'm probably the most proud of our newest town judge, who will be taking office on January 1st, and that's Leslie Kahn. Leslie, when she's sworn in on January 1st, will be the first elected female town judge in the 230-year history of our town. So it's great to see that last glass ceiling shattered, and I'm grateful for Leslie's service here as our town attorney. She'll be missed in that role, but we welcome her to take the bench for the next 4 years as the first elected female town justice in the history of our town. And of course, I congratulate Scott Nugell on his re-election as well. You know, we've got a lot of stuff going on here in the town, and you're going to hear about some updates on this show from Chris Wagner about a bunch of construction projects. Safe to say, we're having a dramatic expansion of our parks facilities and recreation facilities across the town. You're going to hear about phase 1 of West Nyack, which is going to dramatically expand the West Nyack Hamlet Park, including a playground, a walking area, detention and retention ponds. You're going to hear about the Malankara Church property being turned into the Bear Swamp Preserve Park, which will be opening up in April of next year. And you're also going to hear a good bit about the pickleball courts. If pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the country, and the pickleball complex, the first of its kind in Rockland County, that's being constructed over in Congers at Gilchrist Park as well. We're into the holiday season. I want to wish everybody a wonderful holiday season. We've got a couple of events, number of different tree lightings and events and what have you. But more importantly, we have our own tree lighting for the town of Clarkstown on Thursday, December 16th at 6 p.m. over at Congers by the Community Center. And we're also having our Veterans Turkey Giveaway, which is for veterans, active duty military, and their families or spouses. And that's going to take place on Saturday, December 18th from 9 until 12 over at Zucker, over at Street Community Center. We're going to ask that you pre-register, so please contact my office at 639-2050, 639-2050 to pre-register. If you're a veteran or active duty military personnel. So we've got a great show for you today. We've got Frank Voce, who's the founder of Reps for Responders, and he'll be talking about work in recovery for working with first responders in recovery. We have Chris Wagner, our acting director of our DEFM, who's going to be talking about a bunch of construction projects the town's undertaking and planning. And then we have Chris Dunleavy, the chief of the Nanuet Volunteer Ambulance Corps, who's going to talk about the wonderful work that the Ambulance Corps does. All that and more on this episode of Hometown Happenings. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My first guest is Frank Voce from Reps for Responders. Welcome, Frank.
Mr. Supervisor, thanks for having me today. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us. And you've got a very interesting story to tell. and a very important mission. You're an NYPD officer, and you're involved in trying to assist other officers, other first responders, not just police, but first responders, get through trauma. And so I'm delighted to have you on our program. You started a not-for-profit foundation that works with first responders, not just here in Rockland, but across the country, really. And we're really excited to have you. So maybe you could tell us just a little bit about yourself, Frank, where you were born and raised.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Frank Voce. I was born in Congress, New York. Went to Clarkstown North, played football there, went to Rockland Community College, graduated from SUNY Cortland, bachelor's degree in criminology. I was a Congress volunteer firefighter for 3 years, and also an Eagle Scout with Troop 29 out of Clarkstown, and now active police officer for the city of New York for almost 6.5 years.
So, and just a little bit back to your background. So the Voce family has been around for a lot of years in Congress, and and congratulations again, and just this great credit to you, going all the way through scouting and becoming an Eagle Scout. It's something like only 4% of all scouts actually attain that rank. And so it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of planning. Also, usually it takes a mom to kind of kick in the butt sometimes to finish up, right?
True, yeah.
But that's really great. So you're really a hometown boy, Congress boy that kind of experienced life here in Clarkstown as a community and as a town. It's really, a place where you have your roots. It's been good for you, and then you decide to kind of move into law enforcement. What made you decide to become a police officer?
I think being in Clarkstown, and like you said, my family always being involved in giving back. Like my dad has over 40 years of volunteer fire service in Congress. My mom's a home care nurse out of Nyack, Montefiore, and always just giving back was kind of just rooted into me. And it was either be a police officer or a fireman, and the police officer is where I got the first call, so that's what called me first, and that's what kind of started my journey.
Right, and where you kind of moved your journey along, you ended up becoming an NYPD police officer. And I know you've talked, you were on our radio program, and you end up experiencing some trauma, some issues. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what moved you into number one, recovery, and then what prompted you to start Reps for Responders.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So in 2018, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and alcohol use disorder, and I had to just make a decision in my life that involved with my job, and I put a lot of pressure on myself, couldn't make a decision, and then I kind of got stuck, and I started to cope with Jack and Jose, and it was a spiral. And then I would just say it was dark. It was dark times, and I had to make a decision, Frank. I said, you got to keep fighting. You have to. You love yourself, your family, your friends love you, and they want you to do better. So my friends and family, really great support network. I decided to raise my hand and go get help in 2018. And then in 2019, I ended up going to, they call it in New York City, the Farm, which is rehab, an inpatient facility. And I haven't had a drink of alcohol, not one sip, since September 23rd, 2019. So over a little over 2 years. And as I started to get better and jump into the recovery, because it was, for 10 months I was fighting it every single day, Mr. Supervisor, because I'm a cop. How can I ask for help? I can't turn in my gun and shield. I have to help people, but meanwhile, if I can't help myself, I'm not going to be able to help anybody and then put others in danger. It wasn't the right thing. But it was very hard to accept, and I know that happens a lot all over, in the police world, and a lot in the first responder community. So in 2019, as I started to get better, I realized that NYPD had 10 active police officers lose their life as suicide in 2019. 239 police officers lost their life as suicide in 2019. 2020, there was 175 police officers that lost their life as suicide. 20% of everyday people, the statistics show, suffer from PTSD, anxiety, and depression. That increases to 30% for first responders. 1 in 5 police officers have a suicidal ideation in their lifetime, either while they're working or they're retired, and the average age of a police officer is 57 to 65. Mm-hmm. So these are a lot of statistics that kind of really started to make me think. And I said, wow, okay, what kind of helped me in my recovery process was talking about what I went through, good or bad, with like-minded people, trusted individuals, fitness, and eating as best as I can really helped me start my recovery journey. So I was like, all right, how can I make sure that this doesn't ever happen to anybody else? Because it doesn't have to be that dark space. It doesn't happen only if you let it. So I said, okay, think about an idea, nonprofit, know nothing about nonprofit world, nothing about the business world. And then towards the very end of 2019, right before 2020, we got accepted for the 501c3. And then March of 2020, we opened up the gym. The first plan was free open gym for first responders and military. And in March of 2020, we also had COVID, so the gym was open for 10 days right next to the river court. Then we ended up closing the doors for good.
Right, and I know we talked on the radio about the importance with working out, because police and first responders will have to meet qualification standards anyway for their job with physical fitness, but there's the whole release of endorphins when you're working out, and it becomes a natural high, and kind of get that rush, if you will, that high, instead of the artificial high that people get from alcohol, drugs, other substances that they abuse. Before I go on, though, I have to say this is just remarkably refreshing and incredibly courageous on your part to tackle your own addiction and then to speak about it to try and help others. And I want to thank you for that, because you're absolutely right. As probably our viewers know, I mean, my career way back when was I was in the priesthood, Roman Catholic priesthood, and one of the parishes I was assigned to was St. Brendan's in the Bronx. And I remember actually officiating at the funeral for a policewoman. She was an officer and sergeant, and she took her own life. And we had the inspector's funeral, for her outside, hundreds and hundreds of officers, lined up, and just incredibly sad. And I remember even back then, that was 30 plus years ago, listening to some of the police officers saying that who would have thought, who would have thought this would have happened. And so had somebody been there for her to talk to her, maybe there would have been a different outcome. So it's really great what you're doing, because you are putting a format in place and an organization in place to try and get first responders, police officers, firefighters, EMS, military, to talk about these things that they don't always talk about.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words, and talking can really save a life.
So the gym closes down, and then you kind of move on the slightly different mission, where you're now moving a couple of different areas. You're supporting various first responders for a free gym. You're also running a support group, like discussions. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
So the first responder umbrella is police officer, firefighter, EMS, EMT, corrections, military, nurses, police dispatchers. The only requirement is that you want to improve yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So every Sunday night, I run a Zoom group called Responder Talk. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's a topic meeting. It's a speaker meeting. We just have daily check-in meetings, and it's for any active or retired first responder personnel that I just stated. We've had check-ins from 16 different states across the country. We have Capitol police officers, Texas Ranger, people in Florida checking in with NYPD guys, checking in with NYPD personnel that live in the town of Clarkstown, the guys at NYPD that live in Rockland, So now if I'm a police officer, let's just say in Queens, I might not feel comfortable talking about what I'm going through, but now I'm in this group, and I'm able to have someone that in my head, I might not meet them in person, maybe I can open up and trust a little more and go from there. And it's been an excellent part, like the meat and potatoes of our program. And part of the mental health umbrella, also we do a resiliency skills training where we have 2 great mental health professionals, Joseph Lanzoni, who is a Clarkstown resident but works out of Nyack, and William Santana, who his office is in the town of Clarkstown, but he lives in Howard Shore, Stony Point area. They will take 2 first responders and they'll go 4 to 5 weeks. It's like a class, once a week, and you learn about coping skills, substance abuse, how to stay present, triggers in your life to if something comes up, and how to deal with that instead of just reacting, kind of holding it, taking it in, thinking before we react, and try to take those tools as you go on and live, learn, and pass on to the next first responder. And if someone really, really needs a little more help, then we're able to set up a price range with mental health professionals to be able to kind of get them started for a little bit on their journey. So that's the mental health side. And again, a lot of the people in that responder talk, I wouldn't say a lot, I would say everybody is just so great and supportive. Half of the people are in recovery, or half are just trying to make it through the career. They might have some relationship difficulties or things like that. So that is the mental health side. The fitness side, we partnered up with various gyms in the county, and we sponsor first responder, active first responder, for up to 2 to 3 months of their sponsorship, of their membership. The only requirement is you have to make it 8 times in a month. That's twice a week. If you do that, we'll pay for month 2, possibly month 3. But in the town of Clarkstown, Hensel Gracie Rockland, right off of 59 there, have been great. Iron Fist Athletics in Nanuet, the CrossFit gym, again, has been great. One of the owners is a New York State trooper, a very great community. The owner, Sato, is a good community guy. And then Varsity House Gym, which is in Orangeburg, is another been great asset to that. So that's like the main fitness gyms we worked with. And we worked with gyms in Westchester, Long Island, Orange County, all over the place, other gyms in Clarkstown as well. And then we have a health coach nutritionist who will create a meal program for you, and it's once a week via Zoom, and you run that for about 3 months. You focus on sleep, you focus on stress, then we get into the nutrition part and try to make a meal plan exactly for you, because if I work midnights and you work day shifts, our eating is going to be completely different, because again, sleep is so important for mental health. So we have the physical fitness side, the mental health side, and then the physical fitness tactics side, the mental health side, the nutrition, and the health coaching. It's more of like a holistic approach.
And it's great because, you know, one of the other things that we know, and we've had folks come on from the Vet to Vet program, and veterans will oftentimes really not, and first responders are very much the same way. They're not going to look for help. They're not going to be looking to, you know, put their hand out typically, and they're going to just let things kind of fester within inside. And oftentimes it's better, it's not better, you know, it's oftentimes it is better for a vet to speak with somebody else who's had a common experience. Likewise with first responders, because unless you've been, you know, involved in that area of service or line of work, you don't really know what the person's, you know, kind of going through. You can try and empathize or sympathize, but you really can't empathize because you haven't had that same common experience. And so it's great that you're really kind of building it on that very successful model of, you know, first responder to first responder. And more importantly, just this venue, you've created a nice online community. It's probably one of the only positive things that's actually come out of COVID, is that online communities are easier to build now. People are more accepting and willing and likely to get involved in something via Zoom than if they ever would have done in the past. But it opens it up because you have first responders from 16 states. That's remarkable, and you guys have only been going for, you know, a little over, you know, 2 years now. That's incredible, you know, when you think about it, how it's really grown, and it'll be fascinating to watch it grow over the next couple of years. But we're about out of time, so let me just ask you what advice you would have for somebody that's supporting a first responder or a first responder who may be watching this program that may be going through some difficulty. What's your advice to give to them?
Sorry for the question real quick. To someone that is not a first responder, that seeing a first responder go through a hard time?
Or the first responder themselves, either.
Okay. Number one is absolutely is, for the first responder, is don't hold it in. Pick up the phone, call someone that you love, you trust, or reach out to us. And like I said on the radio show, I promise I'll do my best that if our organization is not right for you, we will help you find another organization or someone that can help you of what you're going through. Because the more we hold it in, the more it gets louder and louder and louder. And all those statistics that I named is we don't want anyone to ever be a statistic, because we don't have to be. And that's the model and the group we try to form here. And for a loved one that's seeing maybe a first responder struggle, just always tell them communication is key. It's key in the first responder world, in the police world, in any relationship. Communication. If there's communication, there'd be no wars, there'd be no fights. Is just let them know that you're here, and also let them know, hey, if you have a hard day at work and you want to come home and just speak and talk about it, I promise I won't say anything. Just letting it out. That's probably best advice I got right now.
Great. That's wonderful advice. Thank you so much. If someone wants to get in contact with you and Reps for Responders, how do they do that?
Reps for Responders at gmail.com, REPSFORRESPONDERS at gmail.com. We have our website, repsforresponders.org, and we're very active on social media where we do giveaways, the meetings, information, and all that is reps_for_responders. We have Facebook as well, and we usually answer relatively quickly.
Great. And hopefully we're into the holiday season and folks will consider donating to help support first responders as well. It's a worthy organization, charitable 501c3, so it's all donations are tax deductible, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Great. Well, Frank, thank you so much. Thank you for your courage, and good luck in your continued recovery, because I know that's a lifetime struggle and a lifetime effort, and we know you'll be successful with it, and thank you for helping other first responders.
One day at a time, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. My next guest is our acting director of our DEFM, Chris Wagner. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Supervisor.
So delighted to have you on the program. Also delighted to have you in this new and important role. A number of years ago, the town actually merged all of our maintenance functions and our engineering department together, and gives us more bang for the buck. We do some more projects in-house. And Dennis Letson had been in charge of that division in that department. Dennis recently retired, and the town board has appointed you as our acting director, and moving forward taking that position. So we're delighted to have you in that role as the chief engineer for the town, also overseeing our construction projects, if you will. So before we get to some of the things that are happening with DEFM, because there's a lot going on, maybe you could talk just a little bit about your background. You're born and raised, and how long you've been working for the town.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. And so I'm a lifelong Clarkstown resident. Grew up in Nanuet, attended Nanuet High School. Went on to attend St. Thomas Aquinas College and graduated in 2000. Started with the town in 2001, so I'm in my 21st year with the town. Shortly after starting with the town, I realized I wanted to pursue a career in engineering. So I attended school at night, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Obtained my engineering degree in 2011 and went on to earn my professional engineering license in 2016. And I currently live in New City with my wife and 3 children. And that's...
Hometown boy that made good. Hometown boy that made good. And of course you come from a family with a lot of public service, your dad, your sister as well. So
yes.
So we're delighted to have you in this very important role. And as I said, Dennis Letson, who had been with the town for I think over 30 years, he had replaced Lou Clerical, and the town board and I merged a number of functions. It was consolidation, saved us a good bit of money, but also improved services in terms of really putting the engineering department over the supervision of the maintenance department. We had, kind of our cul-de-sac crew off on one side. We had the building maintenance people in a different, under a different supervision, and then we had our maintenance folks from the Parks and Recreation Department, and they were kind of being overseen by Parks and Rec. And so literally putting it all together, and so we're doing a lot of new things, like even just, some of the projects. And now you've taken over this role for the last several months, about 3 months now, as this is airing. And there's a number of projects that you've inherited, so why don't we just kind of go through them, and we'll have some visuals as we do. So we have the West Nyack Klein Avenue Levy project. And maybe you could describe that project for us a little bit, and
Sure.
and where we are.
Sure.
There's two components to it. The one component is pretty much done, but, maybe.
Right, sure, yeah. So the first component was the actual levee improvements, which raised the existing levee along the Hackensack River in West Nyack from the New York State Thruway extending over to Benson Avenue, raised the levee approximately 3 feet. That was just recently substantially completed in August before Hurricane Ida came through. Got its first real test shortly after it was completed. The properties that normally flooded, experienced significant flooding in that area, did not flood during Ida, where we received record amount of rainfall. The Hackensack River levels were some of the highest, if not the highest, that we've seen there since 1960. So that project has proved to be a real success, and so that's wrapping up as we speak.
And that included, if aside from we raised the levee several feet and extended it about 300 or 400 feet, and then the two massive pumps, right? I mean.
Correct. Yes. Yes. So the two pumps that were installed, they're rated to pump at 10,000 gallons per minute. 2 of them. So basically, when the Hackensack River is elevated and the pond can't drain, those pumps kick on and they allow the detention pond to pump, or allow the pumps to drain the detention pond into the Hackensack River, so the surrounding drainage area can drain into the pond. So it just allows that entire subdivision to drain out when the Hackensack River levels are elevated.
Right, and one of the things I think we're so proud of is that that's been an area that's flooded. I mean, like you, I grew up here. I grew up on the other end of West Nyack, but like you, I've experienced that flooding in West Nyack, going back to, my earliest days, and that area always floods. And we had record rainfall and record river heights along the Hackensack, and we had elevated the levee about 3 feet, and we had about a foot or foot and a half clearance on the elevated levee, which means that had that project not been done, that absolutely would have flooded. And so that entire area, Klein Avenue, probably all the way going down into Lulu's and, Source Funeral Home, we would have seen the type of flooding that we've historically seen, that took place last time about 10 years ago.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I remember, when I was, 2011 was when Irene came through. That was the last time the area got flooded, and into all of the residential properties along Klein Avenue in Adele, as well as the downtown areas, the post office, the shopping center, all under a couple of feet of water. So
Right.
to see the levee be built and to see the benefit, is a very gratifying experience
Yeah.
for me personally.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's great when you see your work has happened. Now, there's a slight delay in the second portion of that project. Maybe you could just mention what that second portion
Sure.
is.
So the second component was the replacement, or is the replacement, of the Western Highway Bridge. That was a requirement by the county just to raise the bottom structure of the bridge to allow the higher flow volumes that were be coming through the Hackensack River. That portion of the project was slated to be completed by the end of this year. We did have a commitment from the company that's fabricating the bridge for the town to deliver that initially the delivery date was for August, and then it got pushed back to September due to supply chain issues, and then it got further delayed. So unfortunately, through no fault of the town's, the delivery of the bridge has been delayed, And we anticipate now the bridge being reopened to traffic in late May, early June of 2022.
Right, so unfortunately, there's, first time we've had this significant delay, but, construction project, but national supply chain issues with steel, I mean, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
We had commitments, and we're going to look at what our legal options are with the bridge manufacturer, but we certainly had commitments to have this delivered. It was supposed to, have been delivered a couple of months before the taping of this show, and just pushed out. So unfortunately, that's moving forward. It's going to be delayed, but it'll be done. Let's talk about some of the other projects that we're working on. Right now, we've got a great park expansion, flood mitigation, creation of wetlands in the West Nyack Hamlet Green Park, and it's the second of 3 major projects in West Nyack that the town is doing that are going to revitalize the downtown Hamlet area, but also address some of the flooding issues. So maybe you could describe for us, tell us what's going on. I know my office gets lots of calls, all of a sudden you can see from 59 over to the West Nyack Post Office, you see a lot of equipment in there. How long is that project going to go on for, and tell us what's taking place?
Sure. So it's, as you mentioned, an extensive improvement to the park over there. The existing park was just under 1 acre. The new park is going to be over 4 acres with several features, including playground, walking paths, 9/11 memorials, and there's also a significant component of that is drainage improvements through wetland ponds, so currently they're under construction right now. They're in the process of doing the earthwork to create the drainage improvements, the ponds, and we anticipate the project lasting approximately 1 year and going through till October of 2022 of next year.
Right. So they're well on their way, and so essentially the initial portion, the front portion of the park will be, overhauled, slightly expanded. The gazebo that was kind of in the center that took the focus is going to be pushed way off as you face the park to the left. So it allows for, better performance space over to the left and kind of an open area. And then we're going to have a beautiful memorial to several volunteer firefighters and members of the FDNY who passed away related to 9/11, Tom Foley, Dan Foley, brothers who were both West Nyack volunteer firefighters and members of the FDNY. So there's going to be a life-size statue memorial to those two. We're going to have another memorial to Ken Maturo, who is the former fire chief of the West Nyack Fire Department, who died as a result of a fire that he worked in July of 1974, I believe. So that we'll have a nice little firefighter memorial focus there, 9/11 memorial as well, with a little water feature as well, and then the fully accessible playground, right?
Yes, yeah.
And that has a fully accessible playground with the rubber surface and
Adult exercise
adult
equipment.
exercise equipment as well. And there'll be a small parking area, so you'll be able to pull right in and be able to park to attend the playground or what have you. And then we have a walking trail as well, right?
Correct, a walking trail around the perimeter of the park, which also has a boardwalk component to it over the proposed wetland ponds. So it'll be a very nice space for the residents of West Nyack to congregate and use as a recreational space.
Right, and what's nice is there's a bit of a loop with the walking trail and what people will start to see taking place, because it's a lot of earthwork that's being moved, with heavy equipment in there. They're actually recreating wetlands, and the town has received $1.25 million from the Environmental Facilities Corporation. So we're actually recreating some wetlands down in the area, which also work as flood storage and flood retention, so it'll better improve flood management for storms within that area. And there'll be an elevated path around it. A little portion of that will be over a boardwalk. So really you can have a smaller version of Congress Lake, if you will, a walking path. I expect that this will become very popular with West Nyack residents very quickly.
Absolutely, and we've heard a lot of positive feedback thus far, even though they're in the early stages of construction, from the residents I've spoken to out there, and from people I've shown the plans to, residents, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about what's proposed out there.
Right, absolutely. So let's move on. We've got another project that's underway that, we're hoping to finish up fairly quickly, and it's our pickleball project, pickleball courts, right? So I never asked you, do you play pickleball?
I don't, but they're trying to recruit me, so I may take it up.
So pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the country, and I talk about this with the other town supervisors because it really started just in its infancy only a handful of years ago, and it's kind of if you think of it, it's like ping pong or table tennis, like on an actual outdoor court. And so essentially, they play with larger paddles and kind of almost like a hard wiffle ball type ball, which can do some tricky things when you hit it. And so we've got a very active group of pickleball players here, a couple hundred within the town. And so we took the old ball field over in Congers. Maybe you could tell us what's going on there, how many courts are being built, and what are some of the other things we're envisioning over there?
Sure. So over at Congress Memorial Park, where the old T-ball field was, which wasn't getting much use, we took that area and we put a plan together for 7 additional courts on the south side where the ball field is, and they're adding 1 additional court on the north side where the old skate park was. There was 1 court there previously. We're adding another. The complex is going to be, it'll be asphalt playing surface with the painted surface, lights, and we're also, as a part of the project, we're proposing improvements to the existing skate park building to allow, outdoor bathrooms for the residents who walk around the lake, as well as concession stand or the sale of refreshments. So yeah, it's as you mentioned, it's a very popular sport. I was curious as to where it got the name pickleball. Apparently, that's the inventor of its name was Pickles, the dog. The dog was named Pickles. That's what I've heard. So, but yeah, it's they're very excited down there. The pickleball club, I believe, or I guess it's an unofficial club, and so that project's moving along. They had to do some substantial earthwork down there, which involved, bringing in several hundred yards of soil, building a retaining wall. That all has been done. They've put in the drainage and the subsurface or the subbase, the gravel subbase. So we do anticipate, due to the winter coming, we anticipate being completed with that in the early spring, where we'll have the asphalt playing surface down, painted, and will be open to the public.
Right, and that's going to be a great addition. The pickleball players have been moved on to the hockey rink over in Congers, and now they have their own complex, and it's the first of its kind in Rockland County for any municipality, so we're excited about that. We're also, again, these dramatic expansions of our park services. So the Malankara Church property, and there's some work that's been taking place there. We're doing this primarily in-house. Maybe you could speak to that. We're putting a parking lot in over there, demolishing the old house, and it's going to be a brand new nature preserve, right?
Sure, yes. So we actually are currently working on the parking area, which will accommodate 5 vehicles to come in. It's a gravel parking area off of Mountain View Road. And that will accommodate 5 vehicles to be able to park and access the county park lands adjacent to the town's property. We will be also, as you mentioned, demolishing the old house over there during the winter, and we anticipate it being open to the public by Earth Day, I believe, is the target date to have that open and accessible. Right,
so literally roughly the middle of April, we'll have a nice ceremony around Earth Day for the opening of what we're going to call I think it's the Bear Swamp.
Bear Swamp Preserve, I believe.
Preserve. Yes. And what's nice about it is this is property that we bought that kind of connects into a county nature park that is not as well utilized. People don't know as much about it. So we're actually we'll be working with folks from the Nyack High School, a teacher and a number of students, that are going to help us put some trails in and connect. So literally, you'll be able to, right across from the Mountain View condominiums, you'll be able to pull in, there'll be a small parking area, and get out, and you'll be able to take a nice walk through this Mullencar Church property into the county nature preserve around the Bear Swamp, and really great opportunity for exercise and to be out in nature right there in that portion of the town. So if you really look at it, there's some tremendous expansion of our park and recreational facilities that are taking place right now. West Nyack with a brand new playground, with a new accessible walking trail, outdoor exercise equipment, 9 new pickleball courts. One of the issues that people have, we've got a wonderful facility, over 500,000 people that walk around Congress Lake in any given year. And cause we know that because we have a people counter, so it counts the number of people that walk around the boardwalk and the path there. But during the winter months, outside of the community center when it's open, we don't have outdoor facilities. And because the one bathroom that is outdoor over there was built as a seasonal bathroom. So this will be year-round available bathroom facilities. And we'll be adding a concession component, so we'll be able to, people will be able to go exercise, and if they want to pick up a bottle of water, if they want to stop afterwards and have a hot chocolate in the cold weather, eventually there'll be an opportunity for that. So just great opportunities here. And then, of course, as I said, the Mullencar Church property, that's going to be a tremendous new addition for that area of the town, where we'll actually have a nature preserve where people can go and recreate and walk. It'll be a great opportunity using the town property as a jump off to get into the county property. So you're quite busy with all these projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the 20 plus years I've been with the town, this is, the most activity, or just as much activity as I've seen as far as new construction, new projects in construction, and new projects being planned going forward. So it's definitely an exciting time, and it's a great time to be working for the town. So
we have 2 other projects, just very briefly, that are future-oriented projects that we're working towards. And maybe we don't have a lot of time left, but let's maybe just touch on those so we can let people know what's in the works. So we've been fortunate to receive commitments, $1.25 million through economic development, and $1 million to be allocated through the federal government. So $2.25 million on a project that we think is probably going to be somewhere around $8 or $9 million. That's phase 2 of West Nile. Could you maybe just give an overview of what that's going to look like and when we think that's going to go?
Sure. So that's going to be an extensive streetscape improvement and a road improvement project through the hamlet of West Nyack, extending from Strawtown Road east to the end of West Nyack Road. And that's going to kind of dovetail from the phase 1 project right now that we discussed. It's going to involve significant improvements, including new sidewalks, underground, putting the existing electrical power lines underground, additional parking in the hamlet, which is very much needed, realignment of the intersection of West Nyack Way and West Nyack Road. That's getting realigned to line up with Klein Avenue to better facilitate traffic flow through the downtown hamlet. So yeah, it's also significant drainage improvements again, the replacement of 2 existing culverts under West Nyack Road, raising a portion of the road to resolve any remaining flood issues that still remain. So it's an extensive project, and we anticipate starting that in spring of 2023, and that duration of that project will be approximately 1 year.
Right. So that's a great new project, and we're still looking to get some additional grants, but so far so good. If it's an $8 million project, it looks like we've got over 25% of it funded, and we're trying to get some more, and there's certainly some ample opportunities there. And then another project that's going to be an important project, we're going to try and fix some of the historical traffic problems around Felix Festa Middle School. So maybe you could talk about the Parrott Road widening.
Sure, absolutely. So as you mentioned, that's always been a problem with traffic, with the bus and the vehicle traffic going in and out of Felix Festa Middle School and Germans Road intersection with Parrott Road. So this project proposes a widening of Parrott Road from the intersection with Germans Road to McCarthy Way. It will incorporate a center turning lane so that vehicles traveling on Parrot Road will be able to enter that turn lane to get in and out of the school and allow through traffic to pass through. So now, currently, with the way the road is configured, the traffic, as anybody who travels over there would know, backs up sometimes all the way up to Route 304, and so it's a significant issue, and we feel that the road widening, along with some additional improvements, including the additional sidewalks for the children in the school area, will go a long way to alleviate a lot of those traffic issues. And again, also there is some hardening of the power lines over there, as well as potentially we're looking at possibly putting some of that underground as well. And so we anticipate that we'd like to be in construction on that to coincide with the summer vacation for schools. So we're hopeful that we can get that project into construction by late June of next year.
Right, and it'll go beyond the summer, obviously, but to try and get a lot of the work that might involve some partial closure of the road as we replace the culvert or expand the culvert, to kind of have that coincide with the summer months when school's not in session. Well, Chris, thanks. We went a little bit over, but there was a lot I wanted to cover with you. A lot of projects. You've got your hands full. I know we're recruiting in some new staff that'll be working closely with you, and we just want to wish you well, and I want to thank you for your service. You're 21 years so far with the town, and probably another 20 to go.
Yeah, thank you so much, Supervisor, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Great, thanks. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My next guest is Chief Chris Dunleavy of the Nanuet Ambulance Corps. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, George.
Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate having you on. We're very fortunate in the town of Clarkstown. We have a number of ambulance corps. They're primarily volunteers, or volunteer run. They have some paid components to it as well. Nanuet is one of the best in the region, and you're the chief of that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Nanuet Ambulance Corps, but we've got several corps that, within the town, and like anything else, they're all struggling looking for volunteers and members, and we're trying to also help promote them as best as we possibly can and educate the public to let them know about the ambulance corps service and the EMS service that we have here in Rockland. People don't realize, in some parts of the country that's a fully paid service. Here it's not, and we've got, we're covered, we're blessed to be covered by the Nanuet Ambulance Corps, the New City Ambulance Corps, the Congress Valley Cottage Ambulance Corps, Spring Hill, and Nyack, that all cover portions of the town. And Nanuet, of course, has very busy catchment area with a lot of state roadways, major commercial centers, a lot of calls, a lot of activity, a lot of things going on. So, thought it was important to get you in, talk about your corps, and also talk about ways in which people can support the corps. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a hometown boy. You went to school here?
Absolutely. My name's Chris Dunlavey. I'm a long-time, lifelong resident of Clarkstown. Graduated Clarkstown South, went to Rockland Community College, and I joined the ambulance corps when I was 14 years old. My family was very involved in the organization at that time, and now I'm heading on to my 17th year in the organization.
Wow. So you really grew up all the way through your teens and into your 20s and now into your 30s, in emergency services and really through the ambulance corps. So tell us what made you, aside from the family involvement, what inspired you to really, kind of stick with it? Because some people will join and then they'll leave. What made you stick with it?
Absolutely. Especially in the volunteer service, we see a lot of people come in and leave the organization. What we've seen, the average lifespan of a member is approximately 5 to 7 years. I grew up in the organization, and I really have gained a lot of lifelong friends in the organization, and has kept me around, and other members kept me really active in the organization. And like I said, I went through the ranks, and I'm currently serving as the chief of the organization.
Right. So, tell us, like, what's a typical day like for somebody that's going to be involved in volunteer services?
So the volunteer service is an excellent opportunity to give back to the community. We have a lot of different opportunities in the organization, but the very entry level is our observer program. You enter in that observer orientation period, and then we, as the organization, put you into the avenues for the training. We train at the Fire Training Center in the evenings, and you gain all the education and ultimately a state certification to practice on the ambulance.
And how long would that take to eventually get certified?
The program is hour-based, and it runs approximately 4 months, and it's between 160 to 180 hours.
Wow, so it's a substantial time commitment, but when you're done with it, you're certified to work on an ambulance, and then you can go further in terms of becoming an EMT or what have you, right?
Yeah, those hours are for to get the certification.
Okay.
We do have members that are emergency vehicle operators that are trained to drive the ambulance, and they also assist with patient care or different activity on scene. And then we also have the observation period where they have no true certification, but they're assisting, they're like an attendant in the back of the ambulance, and that helps them get experience on the ambulance.
Right. So obviously you're called into all types of situations, right? So, and you know, maybe we could talk about some of those. So what are like the typical calls that you guys would be, you know, responding to?
So like you mentioned earlier, Nanuet Ambulance covers a very big territory of the town of Clarkstown. We have the entire hamlet of Nanuet, all of Bardonia, parts of West Nyack, a little part of New City, and part of Spring Valley. We're answering roughly 2,800 medical emergencies alone just through Nanuet Ambulance Corps. So because of our territory is so large, we respond to numerous types of medical emergencies. It could be a serious car accident where we have to interface with the fire department, or someone not breathing, or someone choking. We see all types of medical emergencies.
Right. Which, and you just, if you look at those numbers, you break it down, you divide it by 365, and, you know, you're going to imagine 7 or 8 calls on average per day. Some days it's going to be a lot more, some days are less. That's kind of the statistical average. And that's just for your corps for Nanuet. And so you're covering major commercial corridors. So you're responding to motor vehicle accidents.
Absolutely.
House fires.
Yes.
You know, I've been at a lot of different events where I've seen you guys in response. One just recently, actually, I was literally right behind a senior citizen who hit the back of a car, and the car flipped over, and you guys were the responders to it. Again, just incredible work that you guys do. Tell us, you know, why do you think it's so difficult now for people to kind of get involved in joining? Because we're seeing this across, not just here, it seems to be across the country, that there don't seem to be as many people that are going into looking to become EMTs or emergency medical services. Tell us, you know, what do you think that is, and what can we do to try and change that, at least locally here?
George, it's across the United States. The industry, every industry is having difficulty recruiting employees, and our industry is not immune to it by any means. right now there are minimal breaks that volunteers receive. So I believe if we have additional incentive programs, and there are a few that are available to us right now, but I believe additional incentives for volunteer members will definitely spike the interest for the service.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we're talking about. We're actually looking at a tweak of some of our zoning, and then one of the things that we're looking at is to add an additional component where future units that will be built in some of our downtown areas will be available to first responders, and not just firefighters, but making sure that that includes EMTs and ambulance corps members. Because that's super, super, super important for us to make sure that we're providing some incentives that are going to help with maintaining that strong base. Because when you look at the number of ambulance corps we have, if things don't change, we may be on a path where the system will have to change a little bit. And we have great medical care here. We've got a great medical response, but you can only do what you can do with the number of people that you have.
Absolutely.
And the numbers are growing up. I
Yeah,
mean,
as the town continues to grow and expand, and the addition of new senior centers and housing groups, our call volume goes up. Every year we see a significant increase in our call volume, and this year, we're in December, and we're already well ahead of last year.
Right, right. So Chris, we only got a couple minutes left, but let me just ask, why should somebody consider joining an ambulance corps?
We are looking for any individual. If you know somebody that wants to join the ambulance corps to give back to the community, and it may not just be working on the ambulance and actually helping somebody that needs help, but the organization itself also needs help too. So we're looking for individuals that could also give back and help the organization. Our entire operational and administrative staff is 100% volunteer. George, the members that you were speaking of that help offset our volunteers are our per diem employees that work on the ambulance as emergency medical technicians. But our support staff, our administration and operation, we're looking for members that could also help in that aspect as well. So it might not just be somebody that is interested or able to work on the ambulance. We need people that can do some administrative stuff at the station as well.
Right.
So there's many different avenues that you can do if you want to look and join the organization.
Right. So Chris, how do they get in contact with you?
The best way for anyone to get in contact with a Nanuet ambulance or any of our sister agencies or group organizations is through our website, nanuetems.org. You can contact us through email right off of our website.
Right. So Chris, I want to thank you for your service as chief. I want to thank you for your service to the people of the town of Clarkstown. 17 years, it's a real credit to you where you've been helping people in crisis situations, because just like our police, our EMS are oftentimes showing up on maybe the worst day or the worst moment of somebody's life, and you're giving compassionate care, to that family and to that individual. And there's some really traumatic experiences that you're responding to. Recently we had a terrible call in Nanuet with a young person who died, and that was a pretty traumatic experience for every first responder that went there.
Absolutely.
And so, we appreciate what you go through. We want to thank your membership, and hopefully folks, will respond to this plea for additional members. Whatever your talents you have, consider, contacting one of the ambulance corps and rolling up your sleeves and trying to help out, and spread the word. If you have a young person that is looking to make a difference, getting involved with our first responders, our ambulance corps is a great way to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you, George.
Great. Well, thanks so much. Stay tuned. We will be right back. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest, Frank Voce from Reps for Responders, Chris Wagner, our Acting Director of our DEFM, and Chris Dunleavy of the Nanuet Ambulance Corps. Until next time, I'm Supervisor George Hoehm. Thanks for joining us.